We'll start off with your regular intro. Wake up, Bainbridge, or whatever. It's your talk show. I'm on your talk show.
Shut up and sit down.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Wake Up Bainbridge. We are here right now with my good friend for the past, I don't know, almost 19 years.
Bless you, my son.
18. Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I appreciate that. So basically what we're here to do is, in 2010, I became a Catholic. I know that sounds interesting to some of you people.
I remember.
And so in 2010, I was getting married. The lady I was getting married to had grown up and been raised a Catholic, and it was very important to her that she get married in a Catholic church. I had been not raised Catholic. However, my father had been raised Catholic, his three brothers, his parents. So there was a lot of Catholicism in my life, in and around my life. From the time I was young, it was made clear to me that it was an option, but it wasn't the only option I had to take. And my dad would kind of facilitate me checking out the options, but he would not necessarily be the person who brought me there all the time. Or he would tell me, I don't want to make you believe something. And so that's my experience. So when I was getting married, I had to go through RCIA program because you have to be Catholic to get married in a Catholic church and for it to matter that way.
A lot of rules.
There's a lot of rules. So I went through this program, the RCIA program, and it was at St. Cecilia's Church, which is the Catholic church on the island. Beautiful church.
Gorgeous church.
I met
Absolutely.
Great people there. My experience was really good. I had a phenomenal teacher. I think his name was Mark. I'm not sure if he's still with us, but he was a phenomenal teacher. He kind of brought me through the way I needed to get brought through to learn what I needed to learn. I got baptized around Easter at the church, and I became
And your
Catholic.
confirmation name is?
Michael.
Michael. You know what mine is?
What is it?
Michael.
Michael.
Say Michael the Archangel. You know, you grew up in Queens, though, did you not? Or
Queens
at least,
and Brooklyn, yeah.
Do you know who else is from Queens?
I do not.
Jane, one of the co-authors. Oh, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to set this up right, folks. So we have here Richard, who is the co-author of a book called Growing Up Catholic. It was written in
1985.
In 1985. So I have this jacket open. This looks like a first edition original, people.
That's a Book of the Month Club edition.
This is.
Do you know how old that is?
That's what.
There is no such thing as the Book of the Month Club anymore.
That's what I was referencing, was the age of the book. It seems like it's been read and used. Anyway, here we go. Growing Up Catholic, an infinitely funny guide for the faithful, the fallen, and everyone in between, by Mary Jane Frances Cavallina
Of
Mara,
Queens, by the way, Bayside, Queens.
of Bayside, Queens, Jeffrey Allen Joseph Stone, Maureen Ann Teresa Kelly, and Richard Glenn Michael Davis.
Sal, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
I can't believe you want to talk about this, because what we talk about in this book took place right after Vatican II. You're talking about kids who were taught in Catholic school by nuns and brothers and priests, etc., in the 60s. Well, how many of those do you think are still wandering around? And
many.
They are wandering around.
There are
That's
so
what they're
many
doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's your generation, my father's generation, and I think that there are so many people in my generation, which we straddle the kind of what you hear, in the news or the public about Catholicism and what Catholicism was back then and how our parents got raised by it. So it has intersected with my life many times. So it's
So you didn't find it strange when you were going through? You weren't a CCDer. That would be somebody who took instruction at our desks on Saturdays.
I was not. No, I didn't go to CCD
You
school.
were an adult being taught this.
I was I was 31 years old, and so it was very interesting for me.
It is interesting.
I had already formed many opinions about beliefs or non-beliefs, or what could be real and what couldn't. And to be perfectly honest, at that point in time, for me, I thought it's got as good a chance as being this as anything else. And so if 1 billion people believe this, I should probably look into it in a way that was more than a glancing, and it was super significant to my soon-to-be wife at the time, which made it super significant to me. So it kind of, for all, I thought, and I still think, for all the right reasons, that's why I went into it.
Yeah, it's well, as a kid, I was taken with the less that sounded rational. Okay, I was taken with all the irrationality of growing up Catholic. But I got to tell you the way that we started this, because for
how did it all start?
Because I mean, the thing has got sequels, and there's still a calendar. That's
so it came out in 85, you said, or 86?
85.
Okay.
And when originally Jane was one of the moving forces of this. She was an editor.
What, if we can? How did four people? How did it start?
That's cool. No, actually, it was kind of weird.
Because you're talking about these people, and I just want people to know who they are.
Oh,
how it came to be.
Sure, we all worked together at a publishing company in Manhattan, William Morrow and Company, which has since been bought and moved in as an imprint somewhere else. But it was a freestanding, well-known, top-flight publishing company. Jane was an editor. Jeff was an editor. Maureen worked in publicity, and I worked in sales and marketing.
So is this like Mad Men?
Kinda.
So when is Mad Men? Mad Men's 40s?
50s.
So okay, so it's a little bit after.
But it moves into the 60s. Yeah. This would be the 70s.
Okay.
This would actually be the early 80s. Okay. This is Bright Lights, Big City time. And part of our job over in sales and marketing department was to look at manuscripts and ideas, etc. Two things that were happening right then were real big deal books: the Preppy Handbook, and items from our catalog, spoofy books, handbooks, books that were using the structure of the Boy Scout handbook, and they were becoming huge bestsellers.
So we're not talking about long-form novels.
No.
Yeah.
And supposed to be funny.
Still popular to this day are these kind of books.
Or amusing or something else. And I don't remember. Jane came in my office, and I don't remember exactly how she put it, etc. Basically, you're Catholic. They knew I was Catholic, and you're kind of funny, and you would be a good person to join our writing group of this book, which will be like the Preppy Handbook but for Catholics. And I remember saying to her, Jane, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard, because people want to be preppies. I don't think of people mostly wanting to be Catholics. It's something that's kind of visited upon you because of your parents, or in your case, your wife.
Especially in that day. I think at that time, you guys were feeling a lot of pressure for being made to be Catholic.
Yeah,
and you guys were, sort of figuring out whether that was the way you wanted to roll, or what it was.
I was kind of ambivalent. It was a big part of my identity, and I think in the back of my mind, I would always come back to it. Listen, early on, I was either going to be a fighter pilot or a priest. Those were the two options, okay? And I don't understand why I was thinking that way, but that's how I was thinking.
We're going to have to dig into your history to find out what you were reading or what you were seeing that made you want to be a fighter.
Or a priest. Yeah. By the time I was in 80s New York, I guarantee you priest was out, and fighter pilot was still in there.
Got it.
So they were getting together and working together as a group to write that, which does sound impractical at all.
So they had started to write the book.
Yeah, but I was playing part of my life. I was really dedicated to working. I was married at the time, and I was really dedicated to working on my career, whatever you call that, the publishing stuff, etc. And the only time I took to myself was to play touch football in Central Park with all my friends at the other publishing companies.
So that was some Richard Glenn Michael Davis time.
Just for him, yeah. Yep. And the meeting was at the same time, and I missed it, but I think Jane again, I think she cornered me on the way to the coffee. I was always on the way to the coffee pot, by the way, when I was at William Morrow, and said, aren't you coming to the meeting or something or another? I think I skipped another week, and then somebody said something to me like, well, if you in or out, kind of, in a nice way, in that nice New York way. And I showed up.
In a nice New York way.
In a nice New York way. And I showed up, and what they had done is they had taken every single thing that you could remember about being a Catholic as a kid, as a young student, and just written what that was, almost as if you were doing bullet points. It wasn't articles or anything else. And it was, Who wants to take this? It was like Mad Men. Who wants to handle this? Well, you're a Catholic girl, so
there was an outline.
So Maureen, you do that one. Richard, you were an altar boy. You do that one, and we all had our divided up list. We would go off. We would write our piece. We'd bring it back, and we had 2 editors in the group. Jane and Jeff were both very good editors, and they kind of would homogenize
It's almost like you're compiling a newspaper or magazine.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they would mush it enough so it was in form, and so that the voice wasn't too weird. It wasn't too, and that's how it happened. And cute little thing. And after we had gotten done doing, we got a fabulous editor, one of the top editors.
So as you guys are writing this, does anybody in the group think it's going to matter in 6 months or a year after it's written?
I don't know. I don't know, but I didn't think so. I thought it was when we sold the book to Doubleday. I got paid. That was good.
Yeah. It worked out well. From something you thought was the dumbest idea in the world to getting a check for.
My time had been compensated. I felt good. I wanted to call it something totally different. I was a little miffed that they weren't going to call it what I wanted.
What'd you want to call it?
I wanted to call it Being Catholic.
All right. Maybe there's another book there.
I have no idea. No, there's other stuff called it. But my point was, job well done.
Yeah.
Good editor, top agent.
Sounded like
Doubleday.
The team formed, and the team took over.
We had fun. It was always fun.
So what did that lead to? So you print the book, Doubleday buys it.
I didn't even know it was out. I mean, I wasn't even paying attention. I was going on with my publishing life. By that point, I think I was separated, but not because of the book. And part of my job was to talk to all the booksellers, Walden, Dalton, etc. They're like Barnes and Nobles, but they don't exist anymore. And get the information about how books were doing. And so I would get the name of all the William Morrow books. We had a lot of bestsellers, and I'd find out how they placed and what their sales numbers were, etc. I was getting ready to ring off because I had to run up to the meeting, to the big deal marketing meeting. And the buyer, who knew I had worked on Growing Up Catholic, said, "Don't you want to hear about your book?" And I said, "Oh, is that out?"
That's funny.
I was not one of those authors that was running around to the bookstores to see if it was there. If nobody had ever said another word about Growing Up Catholic, I would have been good. I was happy. I was compensated. It wasn't embarrassing. It was fun. It wasn't Pulitzer Prize material, but it was something to be proud of. It was a significant bunch of stuff.
Absolutely.
And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" to the buyer, and the buyer says, "Oh, well, you're like number 7 on the trade paperback bestseller list." And I thought she was kidding.
Joke's on you.
I was once accidentally in Elle magazine, and all my friends that were in publicity were calling me up and making jokes at me.
Because you were caught in the background of a model picture?
Yeah, exactly. And it was actually kind of a face. It was actually about me.
Oh, there we go. Hey.
But everybody was calling me up and making jokes about it, and I had no idea what they were talking about because, believe it or not, I wasn't reading Elle magazine at the time. And I thought, well, this is weird. The book is just shipped. Not one penny has been spent on advertising. We haven't been on any talk shows. In fact, I didn't expect we would be. And it's on the bestseller list, which means it was just like on the bookshelf, and somebody was walking by and said, "Growing Up Catholic, I need that."
Absolutely.
Well, that's beyond me.
Yeah.
I never said I was a great marketing director. I just said I was in that department.
Absolutely.
And it went on to be a huge bestseller.
You hugged Oprah.
I was pressed to her ample bosom. And we were on a lot of talk shows. I was on. It wasn't the Today Show per se. It was Good Morning New York or the New York Show with Matt Lauer prior to the ascendancy of his rise and fall.
Correct.
And we were in big media. We were on the show that became the national Oprah show.
Being a thing in New York City in the mid '80s, American Psycho.
It was. Not in my case. Well, I mean, everybody's...
It's a movie if people haven't seen it.
You'll have to ask these guys, the other authors. my life was pretty American Psycho. That was
minus the stockbroker, right?
Yeah. I was investing in stocks. It was interesting that it did become a thing. In fact, the New York Times wrote a piece about us making this thing into a thing.
We're gonna have to pull this up.
But this wasn't just New York. This was national.
Yeah.
We ended up, then there were 2 sequels. There was More Growing Up Catholic. There was Still Catholic After All These Years.
And currently there's still a calendar, is that right?
And there, 2 of the co-authors are working to produce a calendar called Nuns Having Fun. I mean, this goes on. This is, one might say this was a bit of a franchise. There was Broadway show interest at one point.
Oh, this was
not
a
a joke.
franchise.
This is no joke. We met with some Broadway producers and agents and stuff. It went on for years. It was literally sold over 1 million copies, and the sequels did well. We were always on publicity tours. We did a national college. Not everybody wanted to do the publicity stuff.
It's not for everybody.
Yeah, and I understand that. But we divided up the rest, and Maureen and I did like 15 or 20 universities fairly early in the thing. People were paying for us to come for one night and do our Growing Up Catholic shtick.
Hey.
And what's interesting is the amount of identification there was, no matter where you were from. You could be from California, you could be from Milwaukee, you could be from Queens.
That's the thing about religion, huh?
Yeah, it's instant identification.
Absolutely.
Well, you know this. You grew up in a place where you might have been identified by what parish you went to. Oh, they went to St. Barnabas. They went to. I lived across from St. Francis Xavier Church in Manhattan for a decade. So I had a saint in my window. He was like right there.
Always looking at me.
Always looking at me. And boy, he saw some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But it's had resonance. I mean, the book has never been out of print. The calendar is as successful now as it was when they started it like 10 or 15 years ago.
You put a post up 2 days ago about doing this
interview. That was weird.
That's the internet.
What happened is great weirdness. Where this book would fit into new media and digital, et cetera. I think we actually own the ebook rights to this because there was no such thing for us to give away in a contract called an ebook.
Correct.
In 1985. There's a Facebook page, and it's just something for people, when the calendar comes out, if something happens with the book, you can put it up there. But we're not sitting there blogging away. Everybody's got other jobs.
I wish you guys would to some degree. I find that growing up Catholic, I grew up around Catholicism. It was just around me everywhere. And my memories of it are more my grandparents trying to infuse a little bit of it into our daily lives. But really they were when grandma and grandpa get back from church, X happens, whether we eat dinner or it was the crumb bread that would come home every Sunday after church. And occasionally we would go to church with them. I can remember as a kid, we got taken to church. It was on Easter or one of the holidays, and we wanted to go. My brother and I were, it was somewhere new. And I wore a He-Man shirt, and my brother wore a Skeletor shirt, which was kind of interesting to wear into. But that was...
Yeah, back in the day, you see, the Mass is already in English by the time you're going
Correct.
to it.
Absolutely.
See, we were the last generation where we started in Latin. And then they did the switch-o change-o to English.
My dad can still recite Latin Mass in whole. He
was an
altar boy.
He must have been an altar boy. In nomine Patri Filii Spiritus Sancti, et cum spiritu tuo.
He probably thinks that as he walks up to me every time. He's just praying for me.
That's funny. No,
oh God, yeah.
But that generation has largely faded away. So I
don't believe. See,
I think you're right. I think that's in my head.
They're on the fringes of Facebook, is where they are. They're on the fringes of Facebook.
I put a dumb little post. I don't think we posted on the Growing Up Catholic page in a year and a half. I put a dumb little post that we're doing a podcast on Bainbridge Island, Washington. The
most remote place in the world.
On a podcast which is beloved to us here, but
Correct.
we don't expect anybody else to know
Correct.
about it. And there were 10 copies at Amazon, and then this thing's probably we could probably put it up there in a day or so.
Mm-hmm.
There's already only 4 left.
Yep.
The mere fact
Get books there.
that something was going to happen, no matter what that happened was, caused people to go online and do it. And I know how many we normally sell because I'm a data-driven guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I pay attention to the data and the advertising of the projects, not our project.
People are interested.
Other people's projects. And I still have my little online publishing thing, etc. So I pay attention to, but it has nothing to do with the growing up Catholic books. And I guarantee you it was no fluke. I watched the likes on the page go up. I watched comments being made. Catholics are looking for a reason to remember the better parts of Catholicism.
Correct.
I did not know that.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of BS in the news or in the media or in the whatever, but I think that people who have had it be a true part of their life in one way, shape, or form have had experiences with it, and many of them have been super positive, and they're not willing to throw away the baby with the bathwater. You know, they it's meaningful to them. My dad is not a practicing Catholic, yet when he says to me, when I pray and I talk to God, I talk to that God, because that's the God he understands. That's the God he's able to have some kind of dialogue with. And as silly as it sounds, like that's really real for people. That's so much of their history, and who they are today is how they were raised and how their parents were raised, and whether we like it or not, it had a lot to do with that. Yeah. So that's why it's so significant.
So you could have been in another time, another place, one of the co-authors of this book. I'm serious.
I hear
you. Your experiences and your jokes would have been of that nature, of that communal nature, and you have a good sense of humor and stuff. I just want to say that it's a little bit unfortunate right now when we talk about Catholicism, that one of the greatest Catholic colleges that doesn't sound like it's Catholic was knocked out fairly early in the NCAA.
Very early.
Catholics really like their basketball. You're probably wondering why I'm not a big basketball fan, because Catholics love basketball. The CYO.
They do.
Got to play the basketball. And Gonzaga, which is a Catholic college, like the University of Scranton and the University of Portland, Catholic college that does not sound necessarily Catholic. There's no Catholics in the finals. There were no Catholics in the Final Four. Something's going on. That's bad news.
It's interesting. Yeah, I could not believe Gonzaga had a great year, but they're the team that has all these great years, and they could never manage to go super duper duper far in the NCAA tournament. Yeah. All right, guys, we want to thank Richard for being here. We want to thank Growing Up Catholic for allowing us to feature the book on and talk about it a little bit so everybody can reconnect to that. Richard?
Sal, thank you. It's always good to see you.
Yes, we'll talk to you soon, guys.
You bet.